Hey there, today's episode with Stephanie Regalado. Really, we get into this idea of what it means to be real, what it means to be authentic, and how that gives other people permission to tell their stories, to be authentic, to be real. She's a storyteller, an author, and someone that you're going to love to listen to. Join us as we talk about how we can open up our hearts. Welcome to Lead Your Life, the podcast for people who are seeking harmony in business and in life. My name is Debbie Heiser, and I'm an inner mastery and business mindset coach and the chief igniter here at The Lit Up Life. I feel an urgency to help people let go of past messaging so that they can make a lot of money doing what they love without sacrificing what they value most. Welcome. We're glad you're here.
Straight from the corners of my mind is where I find my sanity. It's a place, another land, another time.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Lead Your Life with Debbie Heiser. I am here today with my new friend, Stephanie, and I'm going to let her pronounce her name because I just had this moment of like, oh my gosh, am I going to mispronounce your last name? So
That's
I'm going
good.
to let you do that. Well, how do you say it?
It's Regalado.
Regalado.
Regalado. It's Mexican.
Mexican. Okay, nice. Okay.
Mhm.
Perfect. So how I met Stephanie was through my chief community builder, Sarah, and we just met and had a brief conversation before we started to record. And I am really looking forward to this conversation because Stephanie has, well, first of all, she's a writer, she's a storyteller, she's an author of a book called If They Only Knew. And I'm excited to jump into some of the content and the why behind that. But before we do that, part of why I'm so looking forward to this is that Stephanie is one of those very real people. And so we're going to have a really real, that was silly. We're going to have a real conversation as we talk about her leading her life and really coming to know more and more about who she is. So Stephanie, introduce yourself to us. Tell us how you show up in the world, and then we're going to have a conversation.
Okay. Well, I'm a mother of four big kiddos, 19, 25, 25, almost 24, and two gorgeous little grand girls, 8.5 and almost 5, who are my, it's okay to say this, favorite humans. Everyone knows the ranking system.
You know, Stephanie, I just saw a meme, and then I'm going to let you get back to it, that said something to the effect of, it doesn't mean that your parents love you any less when your children come along, but it's a way that it's like their second time of raising you because they
Yes.
remind you so much of them. And that's so true. My grandson reminds me so much of my son.
Yes, absolutely. And it also allows you, I'm a glamma, it
Right.
allows me another layer of coming into myself. And it's a different space when you have grands. It's just, there's more openness because you're not rushing around crazy with a young family, always running around, although they do keep me hopping. But I can hear myself more when I speak to them. So I can speak to myself when I was younger, when I didn't have people saying those things to me. And I have a friend, and we talked about that one time. She said, you were raised in, this is horrible. You were raised in a field of weeds when I was raised in a greenhouse. Just talking about, I don't understand why it was so hard for me through different periods of growth throughout my life. When to her, it was just a breeze. I mean, she came from a family very stable financially, traveled the world and everything. And I was just a little farm girl who tried to work her way and protect her brothers from a very traumatic circumstances nearly all the time. But that has all allowed me to just, I'm more comfortable being myself. I've never been able to be a liar because I can't keep stories straight, but I can always keep the truth straight. So I just had to be like,
Isn't that what they say too in law enforcement? Like
yeah,
the truth always stays the same, but
yeah, it's the one unchanging
yeah.
thread. And which has allowed me to really connect well with others because you provide that space for others when you show up that way. And it's led me down this road of being a storyteller in particular for women's stories. And that's how I came to publish this book, the If They Only Knew book, and it's my favorite work. I love it. And I think that it helps us all melt away that shame
Yeah.
and that layer of protection we put over ourselves as we hide the real us away. For me, when I was a kid, it was under a sheet with my little brothers trying to protect us under a sheet. I look back now and I was like, that is so precious. But it
Yeah.
was like the thinnest layer. It was a flat sheet. It wasn't even fitted. And we hid a lot under that or in a closet. And I feel like letting that person, that version of me, which is just me,
Yeah.
come out and not ever have to hide under a sheet or in a closet anymore. So, and I also want others to do the same.
Yeah. And that's so refreshing. And so, where you said you're a farm girl, where did you grow up? Because now you live in Spokane.
I do. I grew up not far from here. When I
Oh,
was younger, I was in Moscow, Idaho, Pullman, and for most of my life, I was in Colfax,
okay. Okay.
Washington, and I graduated from Colfax High School. We had a graduating class of 43, total in our high school around 200, maybe a little less than 200, but good, wholesome, um, very protected from diversity of the world. So that's the one thing that I found so refreshing when I graduated and went out and I traveled and I took off to the East Coast and was a nanny and traveled with those families. And I was like, oh my gosh, the world is so big.
Yeah.
And the more I can meet people who are not like me, the more enriched I become and excited to be alive in this world.
Yeah. Isn't that so true? So then you became a nanny, you traveled.
Hmm.
What's one of your favorite places that you traveled to?
Well, every trip was wonderful. I love Maine. Of course, I was on the East Coast for a while, but when I came home to Spokane, I became a nanny again. And I love traveling to Lake Michigan with the family. They had a family home, lots of cabins on property. It was in their family for as long as a family can be. I don't know, a long, long time. It's like the
Generation.
homesteader thing. I've always
Yeah.
dreamed growing up in a small town, a lot of families had their homestead. And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, little girl, divorced, broken families, hopping around. There's no homesteading
Yeah.
in my
Yeah. Yeah.
bloodline. And so I love that. But one of my favorite places in the world is the British West Indies in the
Uh-huh.
Caribbean. Uh, the one of the families that I was a nanny for had a home on a small island, and uh, I mean, dreamy.
Yeah. That's
We'd
fantastic.
spend winters. We'd winter there. It was when I was in college, so I'd take a one semester or one quarter, take a quarter off and live in the Caribbean. Come back to everyone who hated the fact that I lived partially in the Caribbean. So
What a great way to approach it. And Stephanie, that's one of the things that right away I've noticed about you is that it doesn't have to be in a box. That's moving to the Pacific Northwest from the Midwest, which is where I'm from. That's one of the things that excites me about this area is that I mean, I'm making a gross overgeneralization, but people think differently and they're like, oh, I'll just take a semester off and go live in the Caribbean and then come back and finish my school. It's not, I have to buckle down and do 4.5 years if they were like me, and, get my degree. And so to me, that's so refreshing. It's almost like an entrepreneurial spirit, right? Like this thinking
yes.
differently about things.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so tell me, like, one of the things, and I love that you call yourself a glamma because I call myself Gaga because, well, that's what he calls me, so that I'm
Yeah.
channeling my inner Gaga, right? Because so many times we see photos of grandparents and they're rocking in rocking chairs with gray hair and wrinkly skin. And I'm like, wait, we don't all start
That
that
was the storyline for
way.
so long. I mean, the world is really being shaken up in so many ways. I know a lot of times we feel like there's a lot of negative energy, but there's so much positive and there's so much cool change and transformation. And I love being a grandma.
I know that's so cool. And part of what I love about what you just said is I work a lot in energy and energy never dies, right? Like energy just is. And
Yeah.
so, yes, I think our media tends to highlight a lot of negative, and we see those things more frequently than maybe we did before we had some of this capability. But the positive is still out there because the universal law of polarity says you have both sides.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And as we see more negative, there's also more positive. And so it's a matter of what we focus on. So tell me, like, what got you into the writing space?
Oh, it's such a lovely story of zero planning. I think a lot of the decisions I've made have been decisions of survival. I realized that when I was a single mom, and I've shifted into more of a thriving role. And a lot of that is also mindset and how we are handling our circumstances. But also there's a very real and raw level of survival when you are in certain situations. So I was still in college. I had a year left and I became pregnant with my daughter, my first Isabella. And I thought, I only go to school 4 hours a day and I was doing nanny work. So I could go to do my classes. And that's before they had this great invention of online
Yeah.
back then. And so it was in-person classes. And I had this little baby and I could not leave her.
Mm.
I could not leave her even to go. It was, I don't know what it was. I'm sure I can unpack it. And that there are layers. There's always layers. And at some point
Yeah.
you start relieving yourself of the duty of unpacking everything and just
Right.
that's
We could just
how it
leave it in the
was.
suitcase. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna just let it be. But in all the ways I've compromised in my life, I've not compromised as a mom and my natural instincts, regardless of anyone else's
Yeah.
natural instincts. I've really led from within or let with how I feel and how I want to show up for my kids lead. So I became in a very tricky situation because I needed to make money
Mhm.
still, and I needed to have an outlet for a lot of the energy I had that was, yes, very devoted to this baby, but also desired in a lot of other outlets. So I started looking through the newspaper help wanted ads because that's how it was done once upon a
Right.
time.
Right.
She just turned 25, so 25, 26 years ago. And I saw this ad for a writer slash editor of this new little home remodeling publication that was being launched. And people had always told me that I was a great storyteller and I was a great writer. I didn't think that. It's like, whatever. I'm like, okay, every day when I was a nanny, I'd write out a note, a story about the whole day for the families.
Oh, nice.
So they didn't miss out on those big chunks of their children's lives. And I just highlight a few things, and they would always say, this is the greatest gift. I will never let go of these. These are so amazing. You're such a great storyteller, great writer. So I call the number and tell him, tell him my experience. I was very honest. And he said, well, based on your personality, I think you should come in tomorrow and let's chat. And my personality has got me into a lot of places.
I love that.
We've had a lot of based on your personality. And so we went in, connected really well. He's like, you're not a bad writer. And from there, I just opened my mind to this. And this was an incredible opportunity. I could be a mom, not leave her. As time went on, occasionally I need to go because I started doing interviews and such, but those were quicker periods of away time. And I was open to any feedback anyone would want to give me about my writing. And I learned because I didn't want to put things out and have people think,
Yeah.
like, oh, that's cute.
Right.
That's cute. You talk about, you know, the showing up and thinking you don't belong in places. If I was going to show up in a place, I was going to do what it took to make sure I felt like I belonged.
Yeah.
And I earned, instead of feeling like I don't belong, I'm here. So I need to do what I need to do to feel like I'm worthy of this space. And fortunately, I had a lot of great mentors that way throughout the years. And I became a writer. And people think I went to school. People think I have this, master's in communication. No, I just have the
You have a
the
talent. I
well, and
get.
apparently it's a thing that I can tell stories and really tap in, but it goes back to that being connecting with yourself and connecting with others. So you really get to the heart of things and then slowing the pace down enough so you can capture that.
Yeah, that
You
slowing
can-
down is so important. And
Mhm.
Stephanie, when we get back, we're going to take a quick break, but when we get back, I want to talk more about that. Slowing down to speed up is kind of what I say, like this
Oh,
slowing down piece. So
yeah.
let's take a quick break and then we'll be right back. Let's face it, sometimes as an entrepreneur and a business leader, we need some guidance, support, and community. So we here at The Lit Up Life have 3 ways that you can work with us in order to achieve that. As a private client, we work together to quantum leap your business by discovering strategies to help you move past what's holding you back and allow you to identify what you want your life to look like. The result, your business becomes the conduit to the lifestyle, success, and impact that you intend. Now, I'm a huge believer in the power of collaboration. So in our community masterminds, you can join in with other high vibrational business owners who want to level up, increase impact, and financial gain, all with a tribe of other women to support and encourage you on your journey. Currently, we're accepting application for this women's mastermind group, which is a year-long program for women in business who are ready for that next level of success. We create deep personal awareness in a safe and supportive space where you can experience growth with others who are on that same path. Through weekly sessions with our program coaches, teachings that go beyond the buzzwords, and immersive retreats in places like Mexico, the Dominican Republic, or Belize, we work together to create long-term abundance and lasting impact in your life and business. The last and final way to get involved with us is our group coaching programs. They provide the opportunity for teaching, masterminding, and feeling like you aren't alone on this ride. Come join us. Okay, so we are back from this break. And Stephanie, I want to talk more about this thought where, you're a single mom, you didn't want to leave your daughter, so you got into writing so that you could be home more. Yeah, you had some interviews here or there, but it's not 40 hours in an office or more, right? Because a lot of times it's more than 40 hours when you get into corporate
Yes.
or to organizations. So we were discussing this idea of slowing down and in that moment of slowing down. So keep going on that train of thought about why that slowing down is important and what it did for you in your life.
Well, it took me a while to finesse the slowing down part because it's just a lot of whirling chaos. I had a baby and I wasn't a single mom then.
Okay.
And I had a few more kiddos and their dad and I, who are really, we're great friends and we are still family, spend all holidays together. We've worked
Oh,
hard.
nice.
We are excellent together as a 2 household family.
Yeah.
I never call it a broken family. It's always been 2 households.
Yeah.
Um, but as time went on, I felt if I'm in a state of rush, in a state of chaos, and sometimes we don't realize that's what it is, and sometimes it's just seasons of life. There's more chaos, of course, but I had to teach myself that I produced like bleep, bad word, insert bad word. I put like crap. What I could produce in those states was not worthy of the real estate, of paper, or digital platforms that it took. So in that, just that craving of getting it right
Yeah.
and of not having thinking that people might be like, so I had a second marriage and he was very critical about the lack that I didn't finish my degree. I never did go back to college, but I ended up working master level
Yeah.
jobs. So
It's not always the way to go.
no, but I let that get to my psyche. And the best thing I ever did for my career, another big move, was to divorce him and set myself free from any of that. And then from there, because he was like, if you're writing, you need to be above your readers. They need to have someone to look up to as a leader to guide them. And I'm like, I don't. I am on the ground. My feet are on the ground, the same ground as everyone else walking this earth, whether they're houseless, sitting on the concrete, or whether they live in a mansion somewhere. I truly feel.
And Stephanie, I feel more connected to writers when they are real and they're raw and they're not putting up.
Yeah.
My first thought, and this is so bad because I don't know you or your second husband, but I was like, oh, and is he an author? Is he an editor? Like, how?
He's a very good writer in his own way, but it's very collegiate and no one likes
Right,
it.
right.
No one likes to read it. So a lot of his criticism was I was like, the sloppy magazines that everyone likes because reading levels are third grade. And so I appeal to that audience. Well, I believe there's a lot more
Absolutely.
in all of us, and people always rise to what you provide.
Yeah.
So, and being real, you don't have to like try to do anything tricky or anything. In my vocabulary, and if you listen to my little grandbabies too, is very, I almost said voluptuous. I'm not sure.
I love that.
It might just be me. I don't know if that's my vocabulary. But no, I have a vocabulary because I fed a lot of words into my mind over the years. And so when I would slow down, I could put myself in the place of the work,
Yeah.
in that interview with that person,
Yeah.
and in my own experience, and really hit on the things that I felt were remarkable, that anyway that you remember.
Yeah.
Um, and I would hit on times that were really hard, even my own bad decisions,
Yeah.
even my own struggles that may have caused people a little concern, because there were periods of time where I was very stressed out and I had made a comment about that. And well, not a comment, I had written pieces about that.
Right.
But I'm okay. I'm still showing up and we're together. And the instant when they would meet me, they'd want to just talk to me about their own experiences because
Right.
they felt like, oh my God.
Well, you give
You like,
permission
real?
to tell their own story is part of what I'm hearing. And so
Yes.
that kind of leads me to your book, If They Only Knew. And if you don't mind, set it up and talk, like tell us where that book came from for you. Because it's
I,
really a love project, it sounds like to me.
oh yes.
Yeah.
She's definitely a baby. I'm a book mom now, and she's my book baby. I have her right here. She's so
That's so
pretty too.
beautiful.
I was like, the cover has to
Right
be.
behind you too. The cover is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that the mural behind me I bought a couple of years ago, and it just so happens to kind of be in the same thing. So obviously I have this aesthetic I go for. But I was miscarrying a 14-week a long pregnancy, and I had been on bed rest, to let nature take its course, which is a really brutal thing to hear anyway. And then you're stuck in bed with all your thoughts racing 1,000 miles away and the pain, all the levels of pain. And I had been scheduled to receive a city proclamation from the city council for work I was doing in the city. I live in Spokane, Washington. And I was like, I'm losing this baby. It feels big. And I'm not going to lose this. And against my husband at the time, was my second husband, I was like, I'm going to be okay. And it's a risk. It's very risky because I could have started hemorrhaging because that was a problem I was having,
Right.
a little problem. And so I stood up and I was able to present a little bit about the organization I was leading. And then I sat quietly, and it's that stillness. Stood quietly with the full room, council room, packed behind me, and then all the council members in front of me as one of them read the proclamation. And I thought, if they only knew, because my heart was beating in my head. And you know that feeling, that rush of feeling when I'm a former athlete, so I'd get that kind of rush too before big games, a little nervousness. You'd feel the blood,
A little adrenaline.
the
Mhm.
adrenaline, and I was like breathe it in, breathe it out. I'm like, if they only knew, and I could end up in an emergency situation anytime with the physiological parts of it, but if they only knew that I had this little dead fetus inside of me, this little dead baby. And my midwife had told me, until the baby passes, you'll keep having this. That's why I needed to rest, blah, blah, blah. And when I returned home later that evening and my head hit the pillow and I was just like, whew,
Yeah.
I thought, I was not the only person in that room who showed up with something, whether it was in that room, that moment, or when they show up anywhere else in their lives. Every single person has something.
Right.
And so I was about 6 months later, I was launching a women's magazine, a regional women's magazine, and from scratch. And I thought, oh, I am going to start a column about this. It's going to be anonymous, so people can be very real and raw. They can heal through their writing. I can even help them heal through the process of writing if writing's intimidating. And then we can set it free and also help others who read it. And so I published my story. I didn't even disclose that it was my own personal story for a while. And then I did disclose it so they understood why I love this so much. And women, I mean, stories they just came in. Everything you could think of about how we experience life, finances, intimacy, marriage, family, parenthood, trauma,
Yeah.
broken dreams, but everything. But there was an element of power and perseverance present in every single story.
Yeah.
And so I've been collecting those. It was very popular. Everyone would say, the first thing I grab or the first thing I do is I open it. It was the last page, open the magazine. And it was like a mild obsession about this. And then they said, oh, then I read your editor letter. Of course, that's the second thing. Like, no.
That's fantastic though. And
Yeah.
I think it proves the, point around people connect and feel when things are relevant. And for me, things are relevant when you are real.
Mm-hmm.
This fake made up world sometimes that people say that social media is, not everyone is that way, but like it just doesn't work because it's like hiding behind a mask, and that's exhausting.
Yeah, it reminds me of an event that I had gone to, a luncheon that was raising money, and they had the speaker. She's very well known for the work she does, a affluent family. And I cringed, almost cringed. This is a horrible thing to say through the whole thing because there was such a disconnect
Yeah.
from even touching other people's hearts. It's like, oh boy, oh wow, that was awful for you. I hear that in your story, but that is so detached from the reality of others because you could tell that there's some glossing done up of the story. And with me, I've just had to get rid of that because it's too exhausting anyway, and that's really helped me. It's just I am who I am. People have said they feel like I'm confident. I'm like, I don't know if it's confidence or if it's just
You
I'm
know
just
who you are.
yeah, I'm just gonna ride in this body and these feelings and we're gonna keep figuring the system out and be part of the evolution and not do things that numb so that you can't have that growth. And so I stay stagnant in any situation. So it's been
Yeah, one of the things that
easy.
like I'm not a lover of the word boundaries because I feel like it puts up a wall in
Yeah.
between. But what I say is when you know who you are,
Yeah.
you know like what works for you, what you're available for, and what you're not available for.
Yeah.
And I had another friend who's also a writer and has written in the Spokesman Review for a long time and is a published author, Amy Midstoke. And she said to me one time, she said, if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no.
Yeah.
And that whole idea of,
I
oh,
love
I
that.
can say no, right? And Shonda Rhimes wrote a book called The Year of Yes. I don't know if you've read it. It's so
Yeah.
phenomenal. And
Yeah.
like it loses fear, and the things that we're afraid to show lose its power when we speak it. And to me, that's such a gift that you're giving the world, is that permission to say, here's the raw, here's the relevant, here's the like true heart of, and I don't even want to use the word expose. My vocabulary is not probably as well versed as yours, but it allows for this opening up,
Yeah.
right? That creates then this like I see bricks being moved away from the boundary that we set up.
Yeah.
Um, and I hear you saying, I just know who I am. I know what I'm available for, what I'm not available for, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And it to me, that's a very non-judgmental way of living.
Yeah. Well, when you're in touch with the reality of yourself, you understand your own flaws
Yeah.
and the things that you struggle with and moments in your life where you haven't shown up very well as a good representative of how you'd want to in certain situations. But that should be just a humbling. That's the human side of us. That's humanity. We all have that. And there's that connected line. I always say that the spectrum of humanity. It's one spectrum of humanity, and we're all on it. We're just dancing at different places and living at different places throughout time on that spectrum. So
It's beautiful.
you can't really judge others based on where they are in the spectrum because sister, you have it in you too. You
Right?
have the same spectrum of possibility
That's right.
in
And I
you.
love that you say that because so many times I hear people say, like if things are irritating you, it's a mirror. But I have this very strong belief, and we don't talk about this that much, that if we see possibility or we see characteristics that we like in other people, we have those same characteristics or we wouldn't notice them.
Yes, exactly.
That's what I hear you saying is that it's that
Right.
mirror effect that we don't talk about very often about the
Yeah.
positive qualities or whatever we want to say to that. So yeah.
It is, and that works with the all boats rise together analogy as well. It's like I get so excited for women when they are succeeding in whatever it is. The day-to-day 10-minute success versus the like big major
Right.
moments in their lives, because that's a possibility for me and for all of us. And you get to, that can be part of your joy as well.
Absolutely.
And then when you experience and you can share it, that's the part you're sharing it with others as well. So they know that's their possibility. Like we're all in this space together. So I've never understood the like, butting heads of and women going against each other.
Well, and it's just, I do a lot in neuroscience and it's just brain science, right? Because we learn these messages that we have to compete.
Yeah.
And in corporate America myself for 20 years, it was so interesting watching, I was lucky in one company, we had very supportive female roles, but in other companies I worked in, that wasn't the case. And this competitiveness that gets in the way where we're so much stronger together. And as we lift each other up, right, then it does so much more. But so I want to ask you, like this, if they only knew book, where can we purchase this if we want to purchase? Because I've gotten into this habit now of buying books of people that I know, and then someday we're going to meet in person, and I'm going to have you sign it.
Yes. Oh gosh. Yes. Well, it's Amazon
Okay.
online through Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, the thrift books, all of the book places, a lot
Okay.
of the book places online and in other countries as well. In Spokane, you can buy it down at Auntie's Bookshop downtown.
Favorite
That's
bookstore.
I know, love it. I love that place. And I have an event coming up on July 20th, a big author event. So I am so excited about that.
That's super cool. I'm going to write that down.
It's going
Okay.
to be a big celebration of just
Hmm.
coming together and being again real and let's talk
Yeah.
about the process and come together. Um, and then I have a website as well. She says media, she says dot media.
Okay.
And
Perfect. And we
the
could
books are
order
sold
it.
there as well. Yeah. And actually, if you ordered it through there, I could sign it because
Okay, good.
we're
That's
just
where
shipping. We're shipping from this space, right?
you are your own
Yeah.
wholesale.
My executive assistant, who is my daughter, I shouldn't have air quoted that, but she, I'm like, are you handling that order? Or am I in Christmas? There was a lot
Yeah.
more craziness going on. So she really stepped up. But for the most part, I love to be hands-on with the
Yeah,
program.
that's fantastic. So, Stephanie, as we come towards the end, and I could sit and talk to you for
You
another half
know,
hour,
yes.
actually, but I always love to ask these questions. I kind of prepped you, but what is one book that, particularly over the last year or so, that you've read that you would recommend to people?
Okay. So
Other
it's
than
not
the thing.
inspirational. It's not inspirational. There, yeah, how many I've read these stories so many times. I have read so many self-development books and am very inspired by a lot of readers. Of course, that most of us know Brene Brown and the whole lot of I love not why am I just blanking on everyone? Elizabeth Gilbert and your goddamn cheetah,
Yeah,
Glennon
yeah, yeah.
Doyle, and the whole love all of them and their words. And but my daughters, my beautiful young daughters, were reading Colleen Hoover, and a lot of their friends were. It was kind of in that 20 span and older. She appeals to a lot because there's a lot of romance involved, and romance is the number one best-selling genre of
Right.
books in the US. Um, I've always joked that I'm a choose your own adventure romance author, and maybe someday I will be. Who
I
knows? But so I read a couple of the same books that they were reading at the same time, and it was such a beautiful escape to just read for pleasure and to be transformed and stop looking at myself. But even within stories, you feel, things resonate, or you understand more about yourself and just humans in general. And love has been a torturous adventure for me. So
I love that. Okay, I'm gonna write that one down, and I'm gonna
pretty
see if
much
I
any
go
of
to the
the calling.
library first because I buy way too many books, and
Yeah.
then so I made a
Yes.
pact with myself to check with the library first, and then if not, purchase. So
Perfect.
great. Okay, so if we were to go out to whatever platform you use for music, and I know you said you were big in
Oh,
music, you love to listen to music,
love it.
what would be your most played song?
Most likely it's a song from Prince
I
because I
love it.
love Prince so much. Kiss is my favorite song, but I love them all and can sing every word without even thinking of it. I can't learn new lyrics now, but from my younger years, apparently when my brain was forming around being able to remember a lot of things, it's embedded in there. And everyone who knows me knows that I love Prince and love the song Kiss. And my best friend, Jen, her husband, Pat, has a band. And one of the best gifts, I'm not a groupie at all, but one of the best gifts is anytime I walk into an event he's hosting or he's playing at, he will play Kiss at some point for me. And I feel like the biggest rock star. One time we were in Coeur d'Alene and I walked into the Moose place and he's like, Stephanie Regalado. From far away, he saw me and they started playing Kiss. And I walked in like, people are probably like, who is that?
I love it.
I just let go of everything and was just
Yeah.
so in the moment with the music. And yeah, so Prince lights me up. I also like some of worship music.
Yeah.
That's really powerful for me when I feel like I need some grounding. And if I need to clean my house, I listen to like old rap songs from my
Yeah.
teen years that have horrific lyrics.
Well, talking about knowing every lyric, it was so funny. Not too long ago, I was hosting the second retreat of a mastermind, a year-long women's mastermind that I do. And we were in Costa Rica and we were on a catamaran. I had rented a private catamaran for the afternoon and we got to choose our own music. So everybody was like playing their playlists on
Yeah.
Spotify and all of a sudden this 90s music. Now I graduated in the 80s, so I didn't know the 90s music as well, but these women, all of them were, except one lady who kind of grew up at the same time frame I did, and she knew some of them, but they were singing every lyric to every song. And it was so amazing because I'm not someone that can remember lyrics. I'm not a linguist as far as trying to speak, even. I go to France or Italy, and they're like, no, please speak English. Like, don't even try.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and that's so much fun to watch and enjoy that. So, I'm glad that you do that. But Stephanie,
Yeah.
if someone wants to get in touch with you, I know we talked about where to get your book, but if someone wants to get in touch with you and learn a little bit more about what you do, where would you send them?
I love the community of social media. I know there's what you mentioned, some people see maybe a negative connotation with highlight reel and stuff. I don't overpost. I just post real raw thoughts. I'm on Facebook as myself. Go figure. Stephanie Regalado. On Instagram as well, Stephanie Regalado writer. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter, X, freshly on Threads just because. And then I have my website, SheSays.media. I also have stephanieregalado.com.
Perfect.
So
And
you
we've
can
got all
Google my name and I own the name. It's at least the first page of Google
Yeah.
search.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love that. Well, Stephanie, thank you so much for taking the time today. It was so wonderful to get to know more about you and how you show up and help other people tell their own stories. And so that's such a gift to the world. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. It is an absolute honor.
Yeah, thank you. With that, folks, it's a wrap. Everybody have a fabulous week and we'll see you next week. Thanks so much.
Bye.
That's a wrap for this conversation. I'm so glad you've joined us. Remember to subscribe to the podcast so you can catch all of our future episodes and visit us at thelituplife.com for details on how you can become part of the Lit Up Life community. A quick shout out to my friend Jackie Wilson and her friends, the creators of our amazing theme music. Thanks so much for allowing us to share this perfect song with our listeners. Looking forward to having you listen in to our next episode.